Kathy doesn't give up easily with the photos.
Okay, go.
What does that mean? That's super.
So we were talking about the history of Chelmner before, and we wanted you to actually talk about it again on tape. So could you explain the history of when Chelmner was first formed as a settlement?
Okay. Well, it's less natural than it was before, actually. But then again,
Just start talking.
it's easier. It's easier to talk freely.
Yeah, but you are just talk freely.
So anyway, the was founded, I think, in about 1200. But there had been settlements long before, Bronze Age settlements and early Stone Age settlements, and so because the river is close, lots of fish, fertile land, lots of wildlife, and so. But anyway, the Polish princes wanted to expand into Prussian territory, and so they invited the.
And who were the Prussians?
The Prussians were a Slavic tribe or tribes which occupied this land for thousands of years, and so they invited the Teutonic Knights to come and form settlements and take over the area and also Christianize, convert the Prussians.
Now, were the Teutonic Knights brought to this area to fight
fight the
destroy
Prussians. Yeah, mostly.
So they were so they actually wiped out?
Eventually they were. There are none left. That language has died out. They were not here to simply wipe them out. Was supposed to convert them. But in the process, of course, they would be wiped out. That happened to the Indians in North America and everywhere, or the Mexicans and so on. So the Teutonic Knights founded sort of a castle and a town, which was very common, like the Romans. When new territories were supposed to be won, the first thing is you build a colony, which was a town, with a marketplace where the farmers could trade, where people could come, where law could be established, and so on. So laws were established, and the laws were taken over wholesale from older towns. The town of Magdeburg was the seminal law town for many settlements, and I think the Magdeburg law, I'm not sure, was transferred here to Kulm, and the Kulmer law was used all over North Poland, it seems.
So was Kulm really the capital of that?
Yeah, the administrative, at least the commercial capital for I mean, Gdansk was probably quite prominent too, and the main seat of the Teutonic Knights was Marienburg. Right? So this was an important post. There were other towns around. Rudians, Torun were other towns.
Yeah. Now, how were the Teutonic Knights not an empire?
They had a little empire. I mean,
But they still had to deal with the local. Like, who had the power, the ultimate power in that system?
the Holy Roman Empire.
Okay, so the Teutonic Knights were almost like the political wing of the Holy Roman.
This was a feudal system, and the feudal lord of the Teutonic Knights was the Holy Roman Empire of German nation, so the German emperor.
Yeah, okay, right. Holy Roman Empire.
Right. Yeah. So that's they were subject directly to them.
Yeah.
But also they had, of course, liege relationship with the Polish dukes,
Okay. Yeah.
northern Polish dukes, and so. So it was very complicated, horse trading all the time, as it was done till the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
So the Polish Knights established this, and it was because it was close to the river, and the river trade and commerce and everything flourished tremendously. I mean, they built these 3 or 4 huge Gothic, brick Gothic churches within the 1st century, around 1290 or 1270 or something like that. a monastery, a big church, and everything.
That's funny
And
because you always
the-
think of the Middle Ages as being so unproductive, but that's actually a high
They were
degree
very
of
productive when it came to monumental
right,
building. They were very unproductive when it
Right.
came to farmers' hovels.
right, right.
And so the whole energy that was left over by the farmers was built into castles, basically. I think they flourished for at least 100 or 200 years or so, and then because of wars, they were taken over by this one and then that one. And sometimes they were more Polish, sometimes they were more Prussian. I think in the 30 Years' War, the town was destroyed and then it burned down another time. Anyway,
when you
they.
say Prussian, you mean New
When
Prussian?
as the New Prussian, yeah. The old Prussians, I think by 1500 were gone, assimilated if they were not killed.
Yeah.
So in its heyday, the town was part of the Hanseatic League
Yes.
with Hamburg and Bremen and others. But they left the league later on under the Polish. So I don't know why. And so there was a decline. And during the 30 Years' War, they really suffered. There are still some cannonballs embedded in the walls at one point. I have to show you. And in 1770, I think, I remember that date, the town, or town means also the region, became Prussian. I mean, German Prussian, Prussia, Berlin. And from then on, it really was built up again. It became a garrison town with army contingent, and lots of Germans came here, traders, and so Jews, of course, everyone. So it began to slowly build up again. There was the short interlude of Napoleon when it was French for a couple of years, but then it was Prussian again. And so during
So this town was French at some point?
Napoleon was a French emperor. So you remember, he tried to conquer Russia and was
Right,
defeated,
yeah.
and so. But all of Germany and Prussia was subject to Napoleon.
But there wasn't enough time to actually
To do
Frenchify
much,
it.
no.
Right.
Right.
No, within Germany proper, he established Napoleonic law, which was very good. Still is used in a sense. So, and well, okay, and nothing about Napoleon, but so in the 19th century after Napoleon, this was really was built up. And most of the houses are from the 19th century, because before that the older houses were burned down, I suppose. So the only thing of the Middle Ages that's left are the big churches and the wall around it. The rest is 19th century mostly, and some early 20s. So it was a German town. But again, from former times, there was a large Polish population. I think the relationship was 9 to 1 or so. When I was living here, I had hardly any contact with Poles. So I wasn't aware that there were any Polish people. I suppose that the main street where we are on, at the marketplace, most of the business and the apartments were German. And where we are now, here, these areas, might be more Polish, I can imagine. But I'm not sure, because I know that Antonia Kowalska, lived in one of these small houses somewhere here.
Yeah.
So,
And Antonia was your nanny.
yeah, Antonia Kowalska was
Yeah.
Antonia. And so it was German and fairly well-to-do until 1919, when Versailles, with whatever justification, actually I guess none, the northern West Preußen was given to Poland. And the Polish government immediately tried to Polonize it completely by, as many Germans left, and so the German population shrunk tremendously, and also German culture, language, and so on was suppressed. And that's when my father did some secret teaching of German in schools.
But during that time, or maybe before that time, his father came. here,
Oh,
from
how
Saxony.
we
Like,
came
why,
here.
Why would you go from a German area to a contested area?
Oh, well, my family, well, I guess, well, my father was born in Liegnitz, which is Silesia, which is also Poland. And at that point it was Polish, I think.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
my grandmother from Frankfurt, I never knew, we have to ask my brothers, that's a good question there, how my grandmother got to know this poor pharmacist.
Yeah.
And anyway, she fell in love, obviously, and married him, and was against the will of the family, at least the father, who was
But
very-
was he already up here when they met? Do you know?
I guess not, because my father was born in Liegnitz.
Oh,
So they
right.
must have been down there.
Right.
So I could imagine that this grandfather was a pharmacist in Liegnitz. And it seems what happened then is they found this was for sale. The Apteker here was for sale. And since she got money from her family, obviously, I guess that the way they bought the pharmacy. And they must have moved here by, what, 1900? A little later,
Yeah.
around that time. So they
And
were,
how far away was that from
I couldn't tell you, from Liegnitz,
yeah.
300 kilometers, I don't know, southwest of here.
And at that time, was that Liegnitz, Prussia as well?
I doubt it.
What part
I
of
think it
what?
was Silesia, I think it was Polish, but I don't know the history of Silesia well enough.
Okay, but he was still German, 100% German.
He was, yeah. He
Yeah.
was. So maybe, perhaps it was German at that time.
Okay.
Like, it's an industrial area, mining area, so we have to check that out. Anyway, so I imagine they bought the Apteker and moved here, let's say in 1905 or something. When was my father born? See, I should know, but anyway.
Yeah, I think 1905.
Yeah, all right, okay. So it was after 1905 when they moved here because he was born in Liegnitz.
Right, yeah.
So they had the Apteker, and then my grandfather died, and I don't know when, but that can be established easily. AB has the documentation. So he died, and she took over until probably with the hired pharmacist or so, until my uncle, who started pharmacy, was ready, and he took over.
Uncle Gerd.
Uncle Gerd, yeah. So by
He was the older brother, right?
so after.
He was your father's older brother.
Yeah. No, younger brother. He was younger. Uncle Gerd was younger. He was the younger, dumber brother. There was a lot of dysfunctional thing between.
So is it just the two brothers?
Yeah.
Well, they had the older one that died, right?
There was one that died.
Hans Hempel.
Hans died.
How old was Hans when he died?
He was like 4 or something.
I don't know, something.
Yeah,
You know
there's a
better
picture
than
of
I
him
do.
on the calendar.
Yeah. He died of some dumb disease, like chickenpox or something.
That's the one that looks like Oliver. Right?
Not sure.
Might be. So when West Prussia was ceded to Poland in 1919 or so, they stayed because they had all their possessions here, and they didn't probably think that it was a bad thing. And I mean, it was not; they were not persecuted really. Just no German in school and no German stuff here and there, and so. But they stuck together, it seems. And they
What did
were.
your dad do around here? I mean, other than teaching, like you went to school
That's
here,
what he
obviously.
did. That's what he did. I mean, his mother was well-to-do,
Yeah.
so the money came from his mother, I suppose.
Yeah.
So he had no fixed address, nothing.
Did he live with his mother? Or,
Whenever he was in Chelmsford, he lived with the mother, I'm sure.
oh, where else would he be?
Well, he would be in this village and in that town
Oh,
for a
that's what
weekend.
you mean by itinerant.
Yeah,
would
he
just
was
go around.
itinerant. He went around. He traveled around.
interesting.
Wittgosch. I think he stayed in Wittgosch in Bromberg. Maybe he had an apartment there even or so.
And this was when he was in his 20s, or
He must have been in his 20s. But that was in the 1925, let's say, to 30 or even longer.
yeah.
And then in 33, I mean, often they traveled to Gdansk, and Gdansk was Polish but had access to German. I forget the details there. But anyway, so it was not a totalitarian state where they couldn't leave or so. My mother told me many stories about her traveling from Stettin to here over the border, smuggling stuff like underwear for my father. And the customs official found it and said, "Who's this? Is this yours? Helpful?" She said, "No," because it was men's underwear. And, so she has some stories there. Also always fairly amiable, it seems. And she traveled forth and back with me. So they stayed, and as far as family goes, well, yeah, the situation became slowly more critical because the oppressions of Germans by the official suppression of German stuff in the north became more pronounced, it seems, and so there was resistance to that, animosity. And the Bromberg thing, as far as has been established nowadays, may have started by that a few, let's say, partisan-like Germans fired at a Polish army group, and that escalated and led to a massacre in which, well, the Nazis said thousands, really hundreds or so, the Germans were killed by a mob. So it was quite gruesome. And some, in Chelmno too, there were some persecutions in the summer of '39. And that was one of the reasons for Hitler to start the war, to attack. And my father must have had a sense or information, because he had information from the right, that something was brewing, so we went to Danzig, which was safe. And so the war with Poland was short, 2 weeks or something, when the country was defeated. Rüdiger was born in Gdansk for that reason, because we are there.
But you skipped your own birth.
Oh, my own birth? Right. Oh yeah, that did happen, true. That was in Bydgoszcz.
And
right.
why there?
I don't know, because probably, but at that time it may be that he had an apartment there.
Oh, okay.
That could well be that he was more teaching in Bydgoszcz than anywhere else.
But then before that even, do you know what year he met your mother?
Oh, yeah, that would have been in '33, I suppose.
Okay.
At an air show in Danzig,
okay.
where they would travel, because my grandmother had their house there.
Yeah.
And actually in that house we lived at the time when we were in Gdansk.
And this is your grandmother on your
Father's side.
Father's side.
The
one who owned
Stettin, the other one is Stettin.
But they were traveling to dance too, obviously, because they had to meet.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but.
Well, yeah.
Air show.
Well, to some extent it was coincidental, and so anyway they met at an air show.
Yeah.
Because my grandmother, the story goes, was leaning back and fell over, and then someone from my mother's side, from the Mocho side, helped.
Yeah.
So anyway, they got to know each other, and they got married in '34 in Stettin, actually, close to Stettin. And then they moved to Chelmno, to Bromberg, obviously, where I was born, and that was '35. But then it seems they moved to Chelmno, because when I had my ear operation, I must have been 3 or something, I guess. I was able to talk, so I must have been, let's say, 3. And that operation was in Bydgoszcz again, right? So they had contacts there.
Yeah.
But when I returned and said the famous words to the city hall, right? That was at this windows that faced there.
Right.
famous words?
The famous words when I came out of hospital, I'm supposed to have said, "Oh, my dear City Hall, that I'm allowed to see you again." I mean, it's a little strange. I don't know whether the family myth was embellished or something. And so,
Because he was only 3.
maybe I simply said, the City Hall or something.
Right.
So I don't know what. Anyway, at that point, we obviously lived there, right?
Yeah.
And then from there they moved to Gdansk in the beginning of the war, just a month before that. And I remember we lived in one of their houses, obviously, my mother's house.
Now, I thought you had said previously that you lived in Bamberg. Is that?
That's
Just
because
can I?